So there's so much going on in the world of sport. We've got lots of different matches in international football going on right now. As I mentioned in the headlines, Wales drew, Ireland won, Italy and Spain were both winners. Tonight it's the Netherlands versus France, lots of big matches, and also not just in Europe, across the world. So I decided to get on the leading expert on football from Africa, Gary Al-Smith. He is on audio with us today via Skype. Gary Al-Smith from Ghana, live on Sportuccino. Gary, welcome to Sportuccino.
Hey, great to be on the show. Big fan of it, and it's growing periods. And I must say that some of the interviews you've lined up have been very, very, very interesting. And I couldn't wait all these weeks to be on.
Oh, well, we're delighted to have you. Well, Gary, so much football going on over the weekend. Was there one game in particular that you enjoyed the most?
Well, there was a game. I think it probably was in the Italy versus Spain game. I think that was quite a good one. I mean, I thought that Spain will be able to break the hoodoo of being able to beat Italy for the first time, at least at this level, but it didn't happen. And I thought that all the headlines surrounding it also made it very interesting with the Italian coach Ventura choosing to sideline Graziano Pelle for what he thought was a disrespectful action. I thought it was a bit of an overreaction because, I mean, if a player doesn't shake your hand, I don't think that it should, warrant such comments like Ventura said. He said the player disrespected the jersey and disrespected the country. I think that's that was a bit too much, really.
You'd be disappointed if a player wasn't angry when they were substituted. You'd be disappointed if they didn't have that kind of aggression, wouldn't you?
Because we've seen it time and again. I mean, 2 or 3 weeks ago, it was about Cristiano Ronaldo and how unhappy he was when Zinedine Zidane substituted him. But Zidane said in the post-match press conference that, I mean, he didn't, apparently, some outlets had said that Cristiano had used the F word on him. He said he didn't hear it. And he said in any case, if Cristiano was unhappy at being substituted, it just showed aggression and a hunger to play. And that's what he expects from all his players. We've seen it in so many countries. I mean, even here in Africa, you get it all the time at club and country level. And I think that is a bit of an overreaction considering that Italy don't have a lot of options up front. Yes, Graziano Pelle may be playing in China, but he still remains one of the most potent options Italy have up front. And I think that in the long term, they might regret it as more and more qualifiers and internationals come around.
We saw something similar with Swansea with Francesco Guidolin before he got sacked when he substituted Neil Taylor in the first half. Now, you can really understand if you're going to get substituted in the first half that you'd be pretty upset about that. But let's talk a little bit more about Italy. They left it pretty late yesterday, winning 3-2 against Macedonia. They needed Ciro Immobile to win that. But Spain were looking good. Spain had that 2-0 win against Albania. And we spoke to Andy Bodfish on Friday, the Eurosport commentator, and he felt that Albania could cause a few troubles for Spain and Italy. Do you still expect Italy and Spain, though, to comfortably go through this group?
Yes, I do. I mean, Albania can be a bit of a banana peel, but I think that the quality in Spain and Italy at the moment is a bit too much. I mean, people are going to point out that, both teams have had a change in coaches and so on. But if you saw the way Italy are playing, it's like they're playing the same way. They're not tinkering with a lot of things. It's just an admission that Italy don't have the kind of quality they had 10 or 15 or 20 years ago. And so it will be foolhardy. And on that note, I agree with Ventura. I mean, just do what you do and change personnel when absolutely needed or when you get a player who is a step above the average or what you have in the team at the moment. But like we saw in Spain versus Italy, the kind of quality both teams showed and how the game finished in terms of the results is going to play out in the rest of the group. Italy punished Spain for a mistake. Don't forget that there were 8 minutes left when Sergio Ramos put his foot in it. Spain led 1-0. They were on course to become the first team to win in Italy for 17 years, and the only side ever to defeat them there in a World Cup qualifier. When he stepped across there, it was late in Turin, and so was Sergio Ramos as well. The referee didn't give the penalty; his assistant did, and rightly so. Moments like that, Sergio Ramos is prone to make one or two mistakes, but I don't think he's going to make too many of them in a competitive group like they have. Again, just to sum up and not to belabor the point, Spain and Italy to go through comfortably.
Well, it's probably a bit closer in the group. I think it's Group D with Wales. And Wales had another draw, this time against Georgia. They were obviously got as far as the semi-finals in the Euros. But now have drawn their last two matches. Has the pressure of now going into matches as favourites, is that hurting them? Are they suffering with that?
Well, I don't think it's pressure really. I mean, I just think that it's the classic. If it was in a league, would have said the second season syndrome, where like Leicester City, you come, you are surprised, but then in the second time of asking, everybody has enough tapes to analyze. You become a bit less unpredictable, so we know what to expect from you. And from a country like Wales, where you can't say you can select two starting 11s to be able to tinker things or freshen things up all the time, that Gareth Bale is the key man, so and so is the key man. And so you know a bit of what to expect. And Georgia, even though they are ranked 137 in the world, were able to do that sufficiently to come from behind to draw 1-1 at the Cardiff Stadium. And I think we can take a cue from what the Wales manager Chris Coleman said. He was confident in his side being able to recover in what he called a blip. And I just think that is what it was. Anything else would be an overreaction. And I was pretty liking his comments. He said that they had a little slap around the back of the head to say, it's not all plain sailing after the magic of the Euros. It's not he's also said that it's not the end of the world and that there's a lot to play for. It's only 3 games in. And I think that mentality should be what should be encouraged among the Welsh nation, that yes, the magic of the Euros is there, but in the real world, people are going to get up to you. They are going to know the way you play, your tactics, your little secrets, and that it is at times like these that people like Chris Coleman should earn their salaries. Let's not forget, Wales are unbeaten after 3 matches. They are still third in Group D, 2 points behind Serbia, who are the leaders, and Republic of Ireland. And if you look at the games that are coming, it's not very, very bad. They face both teams, that Serbia and Republic of Ireland, at home in November and in March. So there's plenty of time to figure things out. And I think that the next 2 games are great games. Wales can expect to be there or thereabouts. So it's a nice little test for them.
And of course, Wales were without Ramsey yesterday. They were without Joe Allen. Joe Allen scored that screamer against Austria, of course, in that 2-2 draw on Thursday night. Got a question here on the Facebook. Remember, if you've got any comments, if you've got any thoughts about football or any of the top sports stories, you can put them in the comment section on our live show, facebook.com/Sportuccino, or on Twitter, #Sportuccino. We'd love to hear from you. Question here from Andrew Binner for you, Gary, is it time for Bale to lead Real's attack?
Oh, wow. That's a question I reckon you should put to Cristiano Ronaldo first. Let's see what he thinks about that.
Yeah, I don't think he'd be too pleased with that. And, they do have striking options through the middle as well, don't they? They've got Benzema, who is starting to come back into form, and they've also got Morata as well.
Yeah, but the answer to that question may be more political than tactical, because depending on the way the politics play out at Real Madrid, somebody in power may just decide that, let's start the post-Cristiano Ronaldo era and let's make this the Gareth Bale era, where we make him the central figure and start building the team around him. But I suspect that we haven't reached that point, because Ronaldo brings in the bucks far more than Gareth Bale did. I mean, he does not have the star power. He does not have the off-the-field razzmatazz that is big enough for Real Madrid. Yes, he's a good football player, but can they market him as much as Cristiano Ronaldo is able to do for them? Can he market himself that much to be able to match his on-field genius? And I think that is going to be a key reason why my answer to that question by Bena will be no.
Well, it's all very interesting. Of course, Real Madrid are one of the most political clubs in the world. Let's stay with World Cup qualifiers, but let's move to your home continent, Africa. You had some World Cup qualifiers over the weekend. Nigeria were winners, goals from Iwobi and Kelechi Iheanacho. What were the other standout games over the weekend from Africa in the World Cup qualifiers, Gary?
Well, I think that that Nigeria result was a standout because on paper you would expect that Nigeria will beat Zambia any day. But the circumstances leading to the match might mean that it wasn't to be so cut and dried. The circumstances mean that even as much as early as Wednesday, Nigeria were not sure whether they could even fly out to Zambia in the first place. They had problems with money, as is often the case in most African federations. The Nigerian FA president had a press conference where he said that, the federal government had not made money available for them, and so they did not know where they were going to get money to fly out. But all is well that ends well. Finally, they were able to charter a flight from Nigeria to Ndola in northern Zambia, and a 145-seater plane. Now they have so much space that they were able to give 20 journalists free seats on the flight as well.
Oh, wow.
And so they were able to go with a good mentality. But for Zambia, they are going through not a crisis, but they are going through a transitioning period. After the magic of winning the African Cup in 2012, they did not prepare for a new generation. So the conveyor belt did not do its job well, meaning that they were caught by surprise and they've not been able to, replace their talent in key areas as well. So you had an aging but experienced Collins Mbasuma, who has become one of the leading and most prolific, and in the history of the South African Premier League has scored more goals than any other person there. One of the top 5 at the moment now, leading the attack. He's a good player, big. Think of Akinfewa. That's how big Collins Mbasuma is. Very huge, and he's able to lead the line. But he's aging and his pace is not what it used to be anymore. But Nigeria's very, very English-looking attack did the job. Iwobi and Kelechi Iheanacho, and also our man from Wakpo, Igalo, are leading Nigeria's line, and they are looking pretty slick and pretty good. If you look at Moses Simon, Ahmed Musa was even on the bench. He didn't start in the game as well. So Nigeria look good, and if they are able to sort out their politics, they are going to do well. Plus, their coach is different this time. Gernot Rohr has taken a very, very good approach. Most Nigerian coaches, when they come in, get too embroiled in the politics. They allow the politics to overwhelm them. But he has taken the back seat, and looks like he's focused on getting the job done. And I think that's going to stand them in good stead in their group as well, because it's not easy in Nigeria at any point in time in terms of the politics. Elsewhere, though, Egypt defeated Congo 2-1 in Brazzaville in Group E. Now, this result is significant for a couple of reasons. Traveling away in Africa is never easy. That's one. For Egypt to have gone, and the way they did, was also very, very good. They were actually behind, but came back to be able to win in Congo. That is a big, big deal as well. And in this group, this result is going to be key because it includes Ghana and Uganda. Ghana were only able to draw on Friday against Uganda, and there's so much talk about how it may be Egypt's year to make a first World Cup appearance since 1990. Now, Ghana and Egypt meet in Cairo on the 15th of November in what could well be the decider, because if Egypt are able to win in Alexandria, that will be 6 points. And in a group like this, it's going to be massive. However, a point should be made that Uganda may be the kingmakers in this group. It is they who may be able to decide who goes to Russia or not. Let's not forget that Uganda have just qualified for their first Nations Cup since 1978. They are on a very, very good run of form in terms of momentum, and they are keeping it going. For them, getting a draw in Ghana, who are, on a normal day seen as one of the top 3 African nations, is a huge deal. So that's the way it's looking in Group A. In Group A, Tunisia started on a flyer, getting a 2-0 win over Guinea. A huge win for them in Monastir, because it means that in this group, things are wide open as well. I mean,
and Gary, we're going to have to go in just a moment. But what I wanted to know is, you got Tunisia winning there, but also next week we've got the draw for the Africa Cup of Nations. Which team is looking strongest? Who would you say right now is looking the strongest to lift the crown when it starts in January?
Well, the African Cup of Nations is always deceptive before the draw and after the draw. That's always the way it is. But there are other 2 teams in Group B. Algeria, featuring, Leicester's Riyad Mahrez and Islam Slimani. You have to make them the standout favourites to be able to do that. But we said the same thing about them before the last African Cup of Nations, and they didn't even get to, the final, as it were. Cameroon played out a 1-1 draw with Algeria as well, meaning that Algeria can be beaten. If you look at this Cameroonian team that didn't have a lot of preparation, I think that it makes it all intriguing that we cannot predict the African Cup of Nations and the way it's going to go this time. I think the biggest point going into the draw is that, will Gabon be able to give us an atmosphere? Because I have a feeling that it's going to have a big effect on the way the African Cup of Nations goes. For anybody who is new to it, Gabon had elections on August the 27th, and they've been having political tension since then. Gabon have been at pains to assure everybody that they'll be able to host a good African Cup of Nations, but hey, it's up there, and we have no idea what the state of Gabon is in terms of infrastructure, in terms of whether democratically they are in a good state to be able to provide security and all. But on the football field, I'll tip Algeria to be one of the favorites. I'll also tip Ghana there as well. I'll tip, unfortunately, Nigeria is not at the African Cup of Nations, but Egypt seems to be coming on a resurgence, and we should look out for them as well.
Yeah, they're definitely resurging, and they had a few years where they weren't performing as well. Gary, it's been so great to get all of your thoughts. It's great to have such expertise coming from the African continent, and in particular, your dog got a bit excited when you started talking about African football as well. So clearly he's a big fan as well.
Yes, indeed. I'm also very, very, very delighted to have been on the show. Hopefully, I'll be on many, many more times.
We look forward to it, Gary. Gary, thank you so much. Gary L. Smith, sports journalist from Africa, based in Ghana. Thank you so much for your time today.